Hey, it's Big T. It has been a minute since I spun a bug up, so I figured I would put together a video today. What we have in the vise is a size 14 jig claw hook. That's a Big T jig claw hook with a 3.0 slotted light pink metallic bead. And what I'm going to tie today is a pattern a friend of mine developed. He's a commercial tyer, Erik Clymore. He came up with a pattern called the Pink and Pearl. He ties it in a pertagon, a regular nymph, and a soft hackle. Today we're just going to put together kind of a regular nymph. If you're looking for inspiration on pretty flies, pretty nymphs, check his website out. I think it's smallbatchbugs.com. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with some Uni 80 black thread. I'm just going to tie it down to the hook bend, and I'm going to grab some CDL, some Coq de Leon. This is black speckled Corzuna by Hairline. You can use, a medium or dark Pardo if you wanted. And I'm just going to take that and I'm going to pull off about 4 to 5 of the tailing fibers. And we're going to take that, measure that, and tie it in. I like to, when I tie it in, kind of start on my side of the hook and let that thread come up and place it on the top of the hook shank. If it's a little long, make a couple wraps and you can just make minor adjustments. And then I'm going to actually wrap that all the way up the hook shank to behind the bead before I trim that off, because that's going to keep a consistent width to the body or girth. Tie that in good. The next thing I'm going to tie in is some UTC opal tinsel. This is large. I probably would go with a medium or small. This is just what I had in front of me when I started tying today, and I don't have an open small or medium spool. I'm going to tie this in behind the bead. Because I want to actually wrap this back towards the hook shank with touching turns. Basically. Now when I get to the back, I can leave a small gap before the tail begins, because when I wrap this over, it's going to cover a little bit of the back. Take my thread back up, and now I'm going to start with tight wraps up the hook shank. And we want to keep tension on this as we come up so that we can get a nice flat body coming up. A couple wraps over top and in front of that tinsel, and then we can trim it and come back over it. Alright, at this point in time, I'm actually going to do a quick 3-turn whip finish and trim off my black thread. Spooled up, I've got some Vivus body quill in a pale pink. When you put this on a spool, you want to make sure that spool is loose, meaning I don't have a lot of tension on this spool here so that it turns easily, because this body quill material will actually break fairly easily. So just like I would start a normal thread, I'm going to start this body quill on the fly, come down, trim off my tag. And when I take this down the fly, or down the hook shank, I'm going to go down in touching turns, and I'm going to go almost to the end, but not quite, and come back up. Behind the bead. The next time I'm going to do touching turns, and I'm going to stop just a little bit shorter. So let's call it 3/4 of the way down the hook shank and come back up. Then I'm going to go down with touching turns again, approximately half the hook shank. And lastly, I'll do one more about 1/4 of the hook shank and back up. What that's going to do is it's going to build us up a nice tapered body. But at the same time, what it's doing is it's creating a color gradient as we go up. The full opal tinsel will show here at the back and slowly gets covered in pink as we progress forward. So I will at this point whip finish this to tie this off. And then we're going to get back to our black thread, and I'm going to come over top a couple times, and then I'm going to wrap this thread around my tag end, around a couple times and up and over, because I don't want to tie this black thread backwards down the shank like I normally would, but I do want it secured, because we're just going to add a dubbing collar to this. But to make it a little bit prettier and to make it a little more durable, we're going to add some Solarez Bone Dry. This has become one of my favorite fly tying, I guess it's really not a material, but I guess it is in a way. We're going to just use the brush to brush that on. Get a little bit more. This stuff's pretty thin. And once you've got it coated nicely, and I'll just kind of move it back and forth like this so it rolls around evenly on the fly, I'm going to hit it with my UV torch and cure that. I try not to cover the thread necessarily. If you do, it's okay. Once we've got that cured, I'm going to use some sort of natural hare's ear type dubbing. This is some Squatch dub in a Squatch ear that I make and blend up. And I'm just going to use a sparse amount to put together a collar on this fly for the thorax. And then since I've got that Solarez Bone Dry out, I'm actually going to take that brush and coat the thread before I do a quick 3-turn whip finish. And then I'll hit that. That stuff's so thin you can use it like a head cement. And that way, I've got that nice and cured. So that's the pink and pearl. Give that one a try. It is a really effective fly. It's one of those that you would think is mostly going to pick up your stocked fish, but it is equally effective on wild trout as well. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my network, and for these materials, more instructional videos and blogs, visit www.bigtflyfishing.com.